Hi guys, so today I'll be conducting my very first book review. I've always loved to read, but unfortunately as adulthood has did creep upon me, I have no time nor the patience to do that. But fortunately over the past couple of months, in the winter months where it's was being darker, I've been managed to read about 3 books before Christmas, but you think that's not enough, but it is for me. One of which I'll be reviewing today. This will be like a new segment for my channel, which will be entitled Book Reviews, simple as that, where I'll be reviewing non-fiction as well as fiction books. I'll also be showing you sometime soon what's in my book cupboard, where most of it will be spontaneous, and as well as taking a personal nostalgia trip for me. My book is crammed full of books, obviously, but it's in the corner, so it might be quite difficult to record. It's not a walk-in cupboard, it's just a cupboard full of just 4 shelves. So I'll be making that sometime soon. Anyway, out with introductions and into the book review. So in this first episode, I'll be reviewing Marcus Sedgwick's latest novel, The Monsters We Deserve by Marcus Sedgwick. I've been meaning to do this review about 3 months ago when I did the Amazon haul, but it course didn't take me 3 months to read, it took me about 2 weeks tops. So now I get the chance to review it. So this story revolves around the story of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, which is the main theme throughout this book. It's a thriller, some horror aspects, but it reads like Edgar Allan Poe, where the atmosphere is important to actually build suspense rather than the actual violence of books, which is good because I quite like the theme throughout the book. So it revolves around obviously the Frankenstein, but with one man's illusions as a result of being secluded and isolated within the wilderness of the French Alps, where he begins to write this book, allegedly, The Monsters We Deserve. At the beginning you don't know if it's actually, it's first person, but you don't actually realise it's Marcus speaking until about midway through it, I think. So instinctively it reminded me of 2 films, The Shining and Half-Light, which both have the theme of isolation, of a man's going insane, and also a woman going insane in Half-Light. So she's a writer. She, after the death of her son, if you've already seen the film then I won't spoil it, after the death of her son she retreats into a cabin in Scotland, where she goes insane, but where she sees ghosts in the lighthouse. But at the end, she isn't insane, it's all true. It's a sort of similar theme throughout this book. But the thing I didn't like about it is that it was only stuck to one setting, so within the actual wilderness of the French Alps, and Etienne's house, which is his encounter with a proper physical being. He encounters 3 characters, one being Mary Shelley, which isn't the character. So the young Mary Shelley at the age of 19 when she wrote this book, her first ever novel, Frankenstein, and then she encounters the older version of Mary Shelley in her 50s, and he encounters these two. She tells him that it wasn't her best work, complains about it, and Marcus agrees that it wasn't her best work. So really, throughout, I thought that there was like an essay of Frankenstein. It wasn't really a story, I guess. It's sort of taking bits and pieces from historical perspective of Frankenstein. There was a story in it, and yeah, I did say that I did like I do like history within novels, but not like this. And also he envisions Victor and also Frankenstein, which is the last visitor. But towards the end of the book, when he retraces his footsteps, he realises it's his own rather than Frankenstein. So really, there's no real plot to it. He sees ghosts, but really at the end of the day, it was just him. So it's a bit of a disappointment. So this image on the front is a very good tattoo idea. At the beginning, the last moment when I wasn't really going to get the hardback slipcover like this. So it has the same image. So originally I was going to get the slipcover, but until I saw Marcus's Instagram post, I thought, yeah, please, yes please. It looked really, really cool. And so yeah, the image on the front, this little being here, sort of reminded me of Groot, where he's got the vines, he's got antlers. It's supposed to be represent Marcus himself, the author, where his head sticks out of the triangle, where he's supposed to be in the middle, where his cabin is. And then these inverted triangle here, that's supposed to be the mountain or Evian, Evian water. And then Evian, and then the town, and the glacier. So it's supposed to be him. So this, in a way, it's like a map of olden days, where it's a very clever idea. It's been like a representation of, so all in this image, that's the clue. And then the monsters we deserve, I think has lots of different meanings to it. So like the monsters we deserve, it's telling about how the author might regret selling the monster out into the world, like Mary Shelley did. So that's the theme. All she does is just complain about it, and then it just so happened that Victor and Frankenstein appear as well, telling about the whole truth of it all. So the monsters we deserve, do we get the monsters we deserve? Would we regret putting them out into the world? Hypothetically, real monsters out into the world, do we regret doing that? Or are we comforted by our own desire of having created our own story? So Mary complains about it being created overnight, and that it was in fact stolen. The idea was stolen from a husband, of overhearing a husband and his friend or whoever, complaining about something or other. So she overhears it, and then she somehow puts into the whole story of Frankenstein. So here it becomes a bit of a weird controversy between creation and science, between God's creation of it, or just it being a sort of science. And I think, so that's why I believe this is like an essay, where they explain about and complain about Frankenstein, whether it was creation or the making of science. So I think at the end they settle on science being the common thing, the common result. Also, Jane Austen was within the time frame of Mary Shelley, so that was the whole reason behind where, books, the first edition, like Pride and Prejudice, is to Frankenstein be popular. Marcus heeds her warnings of beware of my creation, and she starts to question us readers of her questions about creation and about how we write. She torments him, she speaks to him quite a lot, and negatively as well. She also thinks it's all a burden, and that it actually defines her. Frankenstein was a play first, back in 1910, and how it was adapted into a play quite a few times. As I said before, her last envision is Frankenstein, first being Mary Shelley, and then Victor, and then lastly being Frankenstein. So basically, it's the theme throughout the book. So the book is about so many pages long. It's about 300 pages long. So it's quite a good story, but I felt quite restrictive in its little processing. So that's pretty much it with the whole plot of it. What I love about Marcus's work is that it's his storytelling, but there's simple sentences which are prove effective, and people who aren't familiar with his work might not like the fact that it's just simple sentences a lot. For example, all things come in threes, full stop. Fast on that thought comes another. Trying to find just a normal simple sentence. And then the snow falls, full stop. But then I think that is a very good, effective way of writing, and that's how I started to write like that, how I started to write when I was younger. Really simple sentences. People might complain that they have these blank spaces here with there's imagery but there's no writing and very few pages. However, I believe this becomes an effective way. So as you know, Marcus writes stories for children. My first one being Book of Dead Days. There's no illustrations in that one, and there's some blank pages in that one, but there are some really nice illustrations, such as this one here. It's got snow-covered pine trees, just so we can give ourselves an imagery of what it might be like. Vines here. A nice forest scene there. Again, it's the blank page, and there's some little effects as well there. Same again with whole trees. And if you know, probably it was a spoiler actually, a major clue on Marcus' Instagram months ago, that he does actually conduct teachings in the French Alps where he lives at the moment. Don't know how many years he's lived there for, but he conducts holiday teachings over there where he teaches people how to write. So that was a clue in itself, about the story, that he actually is in the French Alps, but he exaggerated a little bit, just so a little bit of fiction in there, just to add something new to it. He has visions. He might have had visions before in there. We don't know. But yeah, that's a major clue. And one more, some wisp effects there, and I believe this adds to the whole storytelling process. But what I didn't like about it, I think what I said, was that there wasn't much plot development, and it's only stuck in one setting, whereas his other books I've enjoyed before, such as Midwinter Blood and White Crow, my two favourites. Yes, even though in White Crow they stuck to one setting, had a lot of action. That book is a thriller, and Midwinter Blood is like a time travel where, again, stuck in one location but with different time frames, and a lot of really good action and a lot of suspense and thriller. Most of his work is a thriller mixed with horror, which what drew me in the first place. Not only the Book of Dead Days, because obviously the title itself, obviously. It's an easy read, but like Edgar Allan Poe, it's all atmospheric, it's intense, but not in a violent sense. So if you're not into violence, if you are into violence, like a lot of plot, a lot of atmosphere, a lot of tension, then read this book. But it's not one of my favourites, unfortunately. Just like his previous book, I really wanted to like it. I wasn't biased at all over my thoughts on it. It's set in Mexico, but I wanted to enjoy it, but I think I was more into the fantastical worlds rather than being in reality, where Mexico is apparently close to England, more closer to England than America is. I think it's Mexico on the border of America. So it acts on more realism rather than fantasy and all violence, and it goes all into the whole realism of it, which I suppose I don't like. I suppose was one of the reasons why I didn't like that book. So, but if you want me to do a review on that book or any other Sedgwick novels, then comment down below, because I'll be very, very happy to do them. This wasn't scary per se. It's a slow read, so I have to read it in moderation, which I did. It's quite depressing. It's no happiness. There's no hope. No positiveness. So as I said, Mary just talks negatively about it. So does Marcus. Said that it wasn't her best work. I don't know what else Mary Shelley did. So I think the moral of the story is that beware of what you create. Not just in terms of Frankenstein himself, but for the stories. I know you write stories and you take them out into the world, people read them, but they don't exactly escape from the pages, and that's what this story's evolved. That what attracted me to get this, because of the plots of back of here, primarily. It says, do monsters always stay in the book where they were born? Are they content to live out their lives on paper and never fit into the real world? And that's what I thought. I thought this whole premise of this book is that the monsters will be out into our world, causing havoc, but they don't really stay in our heads. And that's what disappointment at the end of this whole book is that it was just his footsteps, fortunately. So, little spoiler, then I look at the footprints that brought me here, and I see that they were my own. So that means that they were his own. He was all in his head. He was following Frankenstein, but it wasn't him. So I think I suppose it was therapy for himself. Just like Half-Light was, and that's why he keeps on reverting back into Half-Light for me. Even though at the end of that, it's a bit different. Don't know what else there is to say, other than I enjoyed this more than I did a Saint Death, which is good news. I will read it again, but not anytime soon. Marcus is still my favourite author, male author anyway. It's a very good looking book. I might get a tattoo of this. I've always wanted tattoos. I didn't want any piercings, because again, it's very ironic really, I'm not very into, I love watching violence, I love Saw, it's my favourite horror franchise, but I don't like, I'm not very good with pain, that's why I don't get my ears pierced or anything. But tattoos, I probably will start small and then revert to bigger, especially on my arm and stuff, but that's just digressing a lot. So anyway, that's my spoiler review. If you have any questions or anything that I missed, then comment down below. And if you'd like me to do any more Sedgwick novel reviews, I'll be so glad to do them, because he's my favourite author, male author anyway. Again, I will be showing you what's in my book cupboards sometime. Not only for nostalgic purposes, but also for without explaining what they are. Most of them I haven't read, so those will be not what I'll be explaining, and what I will be explaining will be the ones I've already read, so it'll be a nostalgia trip. So yeah, that's my review. Thank you for listening, and comment down below what you thought of the book, as well as anything else I might have missed, so we can have a little discussion, because I do reply to comments. So yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next review.